Hello, and welcome to the podcast workshop replay with John Lee Dumas and John Morrow. We are really excited that you're going to be joining us for this replay. Go ahead and fast forward 15 minutes. That's exactly where we will be kicking off this replay. So 15 minutes from now, I will catch you there. Hello, 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 my fellow and future podcasters. John Lee Dumas here, and I am stoked. We have started the countdown 9 minutes and 29 seconds officially until we kick off the podcast workshop. We already have over 150 people online live, and more are pouring in. Exciting times indeed, my friends. We are going to have an absolute blast. Let me give a shout out to some people who are already here chatting away. We have Hilda Dennison from St. Petersburg, Florida. We have Matthew Kremer coming at us. We have Words to Wow. We have Design Crawl. Eloa Atkinson from Sussex, England. Scott Markowitz hanging out. We have Design Crawl. Leah Hefner. Christy Ford Torbert. What's up, Christy? We have Randy Vanderveen. We have Don Ellis. Leah Pika, we have Leah Hefner, Raspal, Me or Us says hi, WWS, Ock Health from south of England was going on, Amy B Content, this hour from New York City, we have Amy B Content saying Arctic cold, brr, Don Ellis coming at us from West Hartford, Connecticut, cold and rainy today, Kat Sturts, Matthew Kremers from Wisconsin, loving the 12-degree weather. Eloa Atkinson spoke to somebody in Montreal yesterday. Wasn't it like 15? Cold. Guys, why don't you just move to San Diego where Kate and I are? We have John Pafund coming at us from Memphis, Tennessee. Loving it. We have Bobby Abdallah coming at us from Lake Tahoe, waiting our first blizzard of the season. Crowd 101. Wow, huge turnout. Congrats, John. Welcome, everyone. Thanks, Crowd 101. You're rocking it. Leslie Collin Tribble is coming at us. We have Woman on the Road in cold Eastern France. Loving it. Copyright Matters. Aussie from San Jose. Belinda Weaver. And yeah, Brian Bedonde from England. Guys, let me know where you're coming from. Let me know what's going on. If that little popping noise is annoying you in the bottom right-hand corner of the chat, you'll see a little volume icon. Just go ahead and click that. It'll toggle the sound off. That'll be pretty enjoyable. Living Out Loud, loving it. We have Brian Bedonde from England, Rock Creek Runner from Asheville, Adam Marinoff from Rochester, New York, Original Flora, hello from howdy from sunny San Diego. All right, another San Diegan, loving it. Alexander Romanov saying Alexander here. Guys, we are just really excited that you are all in the house. We have John Morrow joining us in just a couple minutes here. He'll be on the actual hangout with me, having an absolute blast. As you can see, we're going to kick off right on time. In fact, I just see right now we have John joining us. John, do we have audio, my friends?
Can you hear me?
I can hear you loud and clear. You're coming in. How's everything going?
It's going great. It's going
Wonderful.
Great.
Well, we have the chat room up and rocking. I've been welcoming people as they've been coming in. It's been quite the blast so far with people from all over the world who are coming at us. A lot of people from England specifically, a couple people from France, and then of course all over Canada and the U.S. But how's the weather doing in your neck of the woods today, John?
Believe it or not, we have a cold spell. Here in Florida. Yeah, it's down to, I think, about 50-something degrees here in Florida, which I guess a lot of people would be envious of. But that's like freezing cold here for Florida. So
awesome. Well, that is, I will say I actually dropped my niece and my brother-in-law off today in San Diego at the airport, and it was 52 degrees, and I was driving there at 5 a.m. So it was a little chilly here as well, my friend, but we have some people on the chat right now that are saying -12, -13. We have a 35-degree, so we have people all over the map for sure.
Yeah, especially up there in Canada, I imagine they're really getting it this time of year.
A couple of people from Wisconsin are saying, "Brr." So, John, I'd love to, maybe chat for the next 4 or 5 minutes. This is kind of still pre-chat time right here as people are still pouring in. We're working our way up to 250 people live right now and more coming in every second. So, if you want to, are you able to see the live chat as well with that link?
I don't have it up right now.
Okay, well, you have that link in that email, so if you ever do want to pull that up, especially when we kick off, you can dive in there and chat away with the peeps. But we have a lot of people saying hello to you.
Hello, everyone.
Go ahead, John.
Said hello, everybody. Good to see you all.
So why don't you kind of share a little bit maybe now about how we got acquainted and what we're going to be doing today and why we decided to bring me in to talk about podcasting.
Yeah, so I mean, a piece of it was I think we first got acquainted. I was just a guest on your show, right?
Yeah.
And did an awesome interview there that your folks really liked.
Loved it.
And then
it became a top 10 interview, actually.
Yeah, it was really nice. So so we started talking and started getting to know John better and better, and realized, I mean, from looking at everything he does, and I don't know if you guys have noticed the income reports that John posts, but it's hard to ignore those, right? When you're looking at it, and also the iTunes best of the year and all of that, and I started looking around, and I didn't feel like most other podcasters out there haven't figured out how to turn a podcast into a legitimate lifestyle business. How to turn it into something that generates a legitimate income. And I know a lot of my audience wants to do that, and some of my students started asking me, so have you heard about John Lee Dumas? Have you seen the Podcaster's Paradise? All of that, and I said, no, I haven't. So I talked to you. I looked at everything you're doing, and I was just so impressed. And especially after seeing some of your past webinars, that everything you do is so solid, so great, that I just had to share it with my peeps.
Well, John, I am honored with those words, my friend, and I'm excited to deliver for you, to your audience, a killer podcast workshop. I will say a little bit of a side note. We have a lot of people saying how cute your dog is that's strolling around behind you, and they'd love to know the breed and the name.
That's Anna. She is a Yorkshire Terrier. I'm actually dog sitting right now. That's actually my mom's dog. So I can't claim her as my own, but she's I'm dog sitting for Mom while she's out of the country, and but Anna is like 12 years old, Yorkshire Terrier. She's like 5.5 pounds. So yeah, that's my my half sister over there.
That's the story behind the DOG, the dog. Awesome. Yep. Well, John, we just crossed 300 people, and again, more people are just pouring in. We're about 1 minute right now before kicking off. So, what I'd love to do is I love starting these things on time because I really like respecting everybody who made it here on time and really giving them value right from the very beginning. So, we gave a little pre-chat about how you and I got to know each other, and is there any things you'd like to share before I kick in? And one side note I'd love to say too, John, is if at any point during this workshop something comes up that you think would be a great place for you to interject, maybe ask a question or anything, I definitely feel free to do that. I'm willing to be as interactive as you'd like to throughout this entire podcast workshop.
Awesome. Yeah. I mean, the only thing that I'll say before you kick off is, I mean, a lot of folks may be wondering, how does podcasting interact with blogging? So, I mean, if you're from my audience, you probably have a blog. You may have also started thinking about building a podcast. And one of the things I'll say is that they really connect with each other really, really well. And that you can do both. And in fact, podcasting is a great way to build relationships with influencers that will then come to link to your blog in the future. And it makes a lot of the things you do with blogging a lot easier. We're actually going to be launching a podcast next year, probably early January, February. So, and when we do that, I mean, you'll be the guy I'll be coming to for advice on how to do that.
And I'll be here for you.
So yeah, but let's get it started. I'm excited.
Cool. I'm excited too, John. And again, that link's there for you if you want to jump into the streaming page and chat away. Now we're quickly crossing 350 live people, and I'd love to just give a little bit of a shout out to people that are here and already incredibly active in the chat room. We have Randy Vanderveen, we have Brandon Lee, Zolly Rumble, Naked HRR Radio, who's actually Mike from Atlanta. We have Pete Primo, we have Ryan Pelton, Stuart Lands, we have Dennis Driver, $5 Travel, Happiness Mama, Dollar Store Mom, loving it. Whiskey Sevilla, if I'm mispronouncing your name, guys, I'm super sorry about that. Alexandra says 5 Yorkies here. They run the place. Love it. Brian Bedonde, can't wait. King Citizen from Barbados. We have Dis Hour asking about a replay. Absolutely for you guys. Happiness Mama, Gary Griffiths, Rock Thom, Bobby Abdallah. He is a Great Dane. Oh, nice. This hour, Dennis Klein says, hi, Kate, Don Ellis, Happiness Mama, Flora Brown, Leah Hefner from Cleveland, Ohio. What's up, everybody? And again, I just want to make sure that we make the most out of your time here today. So I want to just kick right into the podcast workshop. And I love kicking these off today. Well, actually, every time I do a podcast workshop, not just today, even though today is special because of John's incredible generosity of allowing me to host this webinar for his audience, but with a video. So let me kind of pop on my video here and just say hello, and I am coming at you live from sunny San Diego. I'm about to give you guys a view that's all of you from the cold and rainy France, England, Wisconsin are going to be a little jealous about, but you know what? There's pros and cons to everywhere in this world for sure. But the reason why I like to start off with video specifically is, number one, to make a connection with you and to say hello and, you know, just kind of look you eye to, you know, virtual eye here. And number two, because I want to show you my studio here. And again, as you can see behind me, I'm in my living room here in San Diego. Nothing special going on here. I'm in a plain old living room, and this is where I do every single webinar. This, where I'm standing right now, my standing desk, is where I do every single podcast. And again, this is a podcast, Entrepreneur on Fire, that's been awarded Best of iTunes in 2013. That's now generated over 12 million downloads to date. It's looking like in this month of December, we're going to break 1 million unique listens. We generate consistently over $250,000 every single month, all as a direct result of this podcast, which I'm going to be sharing with you later. And all of this comes from right here. So wherever you're watching from, believe me, that's your studio. That's the beauty of the world that we live in today. You are where your studio is. You know, where you saw John chatting from, he does work from that chair right there. I do work from this chair right here and from this living room right here. So whether it be a bedroom, an attic, a basement, your living room, whatever it might be, you can do this. You can blog, you can podcast, you can create literally an online empire. So let me kind of take my video off here and give you a little 360. You can see we started off with some Christmas decorations earlier. We got a little tree. My 3.5-year-old niece picked that out, if anybody's wondering why it's so small. She wanted it to be not much taller than her, so she could actually put that star on. And we got some stockings hanging by our little entertainment center. And then just doing a quick little spin around here. This is it, my friends. This is the Entrepreneur on Fire studio. This is where I interviewed John. This is where I've interviewed everybody. Actually, this picture up here is my first ever Entrepreneur on Fire interview. Those are the waveforms from it. An interview I did with Pat Flynn. That's actually episode number 2, because episode number 1 was just me saying hello. And this is my Heil PR40. This is what I use for my microphone. I'll be talking more in depth about equipment coming up here soon. But just a quick side note, this is a live Heil PR40 in action with a pop filter. It's a dynamic, so you speak right into the front here. This is a shock mount, so if I bump it while I talk, there's not a big deal. We got a little mic flag right here, and then this is the boom arm that just allows me to move this around if I need to have a little more flexibility. And what I actually use for webinars, if anybody's curious, is the Blue Yeti. I like this because it's a condenser, which means I can speak from anywhere. So you saw that I'm moving around right now. If I move back, you can't hear me quite as well, but you can still hear me. But you know, what's great is that it picks up really powerfully from around the room, where the dynamics, you got to speak right into the front, basically have your nose pressed against that. So I love the condenser, the Blue Yeti specifically for webinars because of this exact reason. And you know, I promise you I'd make, you know, those people that are freezing right now a little bit jealous, because this is the pretty solid view that I have from my balcony here in San Diego of Mission Bay. We usually have a couple sailboats going on there, but you know, it's only 8:07 a.m., so it's a little early for some of those San Diegans out here after a long weekend of potential festivities. But that's what I wanted to do to start off, to break down some barriers, was show you my studio here in sunny San Diego in my apartment. So wherever you are, your studio exists, your blogging empire exists. It's just a matter of you taking that step forward and taking action. So let me turn off the video here so we can get into the actual podcast workshop, and I'll switch over to the keynote now. And we'll start off by just me saying thank you again. And John, you know, thank you, my friend, for giving me this opportunity. There's nothing I love more than sharing what I've learned over the past number of years creating, growing, and monetizing podcasts. So I want to give as a gift to all of your audience, John, my book, Podcast Launch. It's actually the #1 ranked book in all of Amazon when it comes to podcasting. Just type in the word podcast, it'll be #1. But this is my gift to you, so stick around to the end, because for those that do, you'll be getting a little early Christmas present from me and Kate to your email inbox of this book, which will let's just say it's launched thousands of podcasts, and we'll launch thousands more, hopefully yours. So today's workshop specifically is going to focus on really 4 segments. We're going to talk about my journey as a podcaster, so you can really continue to see as I break down barriers and show you that there's, you know, it's just this weird barrier that people have when it comes to podcasting. They think that there's just this studio setup. They think there's this. No, this doesn't. You know, I'm not even going to get into it now, but just believe me, I'm going to talk about my journey, and it'll break down some barriers. I'm going to share with you how to specifically create a podcast, like what it means to create a podcast from step 1. We're going to talk about actually launching that podcast once you've created it. I'm going to be sharing how to grow that podcast audience to a really large number. And then I'm going to be talking about how to monetize your podcast, how to actually get money once you put this time, effort, and energy into it. And I know that John and myself, you know, we don't make excuses and we don't apologize for having a viable business, and neither should you. Because if you want to continue to create great value like John does every single day, you have to have a viable business. It has to be actually producing some form of revenue, and we're going to show you how to do that. Then, of course, I'm going to be walking you through live podcast training. This is a live webinar. You guys are here with me right now, and you know, here we are now at over 400 live people. This is a live webinar on Wednesday, December 10th, 8:09 a.m. if you're on the Pacific Coast, 11:10 if you're on the East Coast, and wherever you are in the world. This is a live webinar. I'm going to give you some live training and 2 super hacks that, believe me, you don't want to miss. And then I'm going to be sticking around. I'm going to be sticking around for you. So any questions you have, we have Kate E.O. Fire. She is in the chat room right now. She's going to be answering any questions that you have during this webinar that she can answer. But then anything you have for me, she's going to be taking all of those down. So just say, Kate, here's a question for John at the end. And she'll be saving all of those questions. And I'll be answering every single question that you have at the end of this webinar. So we're going to have a blast doing that as well. And I'm also going to be giving you a sneak peek. We're going to be opening up the kimono, pulling back those curtains of Podcasters Paradise, which is the #1 podcasting community in the world. I'm going to show you why over 1,800 members have decided to become lifetime members of Podcasters Paradise, and so much more. So we're going to get started, but I do want to make just a quick side note, because again, more people keep pouring in, and I know it can be a little annoying if you keep hearing a popping noise every single time somebody actually comes into the chat room. So you can toggle the actual chat volume off. In the bottom right-hand corner, there's a little volume icon. Just go ahead and click that volume icon, and that will turn off the volume of the chat, and you'll be good to go. And don't forget, Kate E.O. Fire is going to be in the house, answering any questions and taking all. So So John, are we ready to kick off, my friends? I'm going to take that as a thumbs up. All right. I think John's probably busy right now chatting you guys up in the chat room. So guys, let me talk about my journey as a, just as a human being to start, and then as a podcaster. I grew up in the state of Maine, which is about an hour and a half north of Boston, where I specifically grew up in Maine. As you can see, there I was as a 4-year-old child jumping in the leaves during a fall day in Maine with a huge smile on my face. Above that is a picture of me as I was going off to Providence College, Rhode Island at 18 years old, excited to take on that new journey and that new chapter in my life. And then there's a picture of me at 24 years old as a second lieutenant stationed in Fallujah, Iraq as an armor officer, meaning I was in charge of 4 tanks and 16 men because I went to college on an Army ROTC scholarship. So I served our country for 8 years total, 4 years active, 4 years in the reserves. 13 of those months were spent in Iraq. And one thing I really want to be specific here, my friends, is every one of those pictures has something very clearly in common, and that's my smile. Whether I was 4 years old, 18 years old, 24 years old, I was a happy person. I was optimistic. I was just taking on life. And even though that picture on the far right, I was in full battle rattle. I was about to go on a night mission that was incredibly dangerous in Fallujah, Iraq. But you know what? I was optimistic. I was going in there. I was saying, I'm going to make the most of this. I'm terrified, but I'm going to do this. Let's remain optimistic. Pessimism is not going to help me in this. And that was always my attitude. Unfortunately, at 26 years old, I left the Army, and I say unfortunately because I thought it was going to be an exciting move, but the next 6 years proved to be very, very difficult for me in ways that I never expected and never anticipated. My post-military experience was a rocky road. I went to law school for 1 semester. It was horrible. I had to quit. I walked out. It was just a very depressing time for me. It was just so obvious that I was in the wrong place. So then I tried corporate finance with John Hancock in Boston, and I spent 18 months in a cubicle, dying a little bit inside every single day for these 9 or 10 just soul-sucking hours. It just wasn't me. I just felt myself just changing as a person. Like, again, that frowny face is there because my smile was gone. And so then I tried real estate thinking that could be maybe more my thing, get outside a little bit more. But no, I tried it in San Diego. I came back to Maine. I was in residential. I wasn't commercial. Nothing was working for me, and my smile was gone. My optimism was gone. It was replaced by, either a serious expression or a frown face. I was just not that optimistic person anymore. I'd been replaced by a person of pessimism, and this was for 6 years. This wasn't just a couple months or a couple years. This was from age 26 to 32. And looking back on it now, it's so obvious why. I had no passion. I had no fire at all for what I was doing. Fortunately, at the age of 32, and 6 years after I left my active duty military, I had my aha moments. I launched Entrepreneur on Fire in September of 2012, so a little over 2 years ago. And this is a 7-day-a-week podcast where I interview successful and inspiring entrepreneurs. One of those top 10 interviews of the over 800 that I've now done is with your very own John Morrow, who just shared a riveting story. So if you haven't listened to that, definitely go back and listen. But this was my aha moment, was to tell just those stories like John shared that changed and inspired so many people. That's what I wanted to bring to this world, and I knew that that was going to bring my smile back. But I need to be completely 100% transparent with you. I had no experience, no online presence whatsoever, no Twitter account, no Facebook page, no great blogging platform like John, does so well talking about. I had zero broadcasting experience. I had never been behind the microphone before. I wasn't a DJ on the radio. I was starting from scratch everywhere. And believe me, if you go back and listen to my first 50 episodes, you can tell I was inexperienced, I was choppy, I was awkward, I was just plain bad. But you know what? That's okay. You have to be willing to be bad if you want to be good. Something that John and I actually talked about. He wasn't an amazing blogger the first time he put fingers to keyboard. He became amazing because he actually did it consistently, just like me with podcasting. If you want to be, do, and that's what John's done in his world and I've done in my world. So I went from clueless to launch. Now, the question you need to be asking yourself is, how did I go from absolutely clueless to launching a podcast? What did I do? Well, like you now, like every single person in this chat room, and let me just even flick back here real quick. We're now over 430 people live. I went searching. I went searching for content, for courses, for material, for anything that I could find that would help me on this journey of how to podcast. And I invested in myself in a major way. I found Jamie Tardy, who was a successful podcaster. She was where I wanted to be. So I invested in myself. I spent thousands and thousands of dollars per month for her as my individual one-on-one mentor. I invested massively in myself with Cliff Ravenscraft's podcast mastermind. It was $3,500 for 1 year to be part of this podcast mastermind that unfortunately no longer exists, but I'll tell you, it was an amazing year. And that investment of thousands and thousands of dollars, that was scary. That was a scary, scary investment for me. But the question you have to ask yourself now, a short 2 years later, did this investment pay off? Well, within 2 years, Entrepreneur Fire has won Best of iTunes in 2013. We've generated over now 12, and this just happened a couple days ago, so I'll update that on the fly, over 12 million downloads. We've built an incredibly large audience, which I lovingly refer to as Fire Nation, and we consistently generate over $200,000 a month in revenue. And if you check out our latest income report from November, we actually generated $307,000 in revenue, and I'm going to get specific a little later on exactly how we did that through, our podcast. And this all came from a podcast. It was based off of my aha moment, my idea to launch Entrepreneur on Fire, and everything that we've built now has spawned from that. So now let's get into the first major segment, which is create your podcast. And the number one question that I get by far is, John, how do I find my topic? How do I find my actual podcasting topic? Now, this is an exercise that I'm telling you is super simple, but within its simplicity lies its beauty. Now, this is something that you're not going to do right now, but this is something you're going to do when you have 5 days in a row just to dedicate 10 minutes a day to this exercise. And this is going to help you by leaps and bounds. You're going to take out a piece of paper. You're going to draw a line down the middle. On the left-hand side, you're going to write the word passion. On the right-hand side, you're going to write the word expertise. And then every day for those next 5 days, you're just going to spend 10 minutes, 5 minutes on each side, 5 minutes writing down your passions, everything you can think about. Just put it out there on the paper. This isn't permanent. Even write in pencil, whatever it might be. Just write down your passions. What excites you? What makes you smile? What makes you happy? What would you do tomorrow if you had nothing else to do? What were you passionate about as a kid, as a young adult? What fires you up? Write those things down. And then the same thing on the expertise side. Write down skills that you've acquired over the years. Write down things that you're good at. Write down things that you want to be good at. Go to your friends, your family, your loved ones, and ask them this question. What do you think I'm good at? What do you think I have skills in? And write these things down. Now listen, my friends, day one, this is not going to look pretty, and it's not meant to. This is just like the first time you ever did a push-up or a pull-up. You're going to be sore the next day after one pull-up, no doubt, if you're even able to do one, and that's fine. That's working the creative muscle that a lot of you, myself included, hadn't worked for a long, long time. So day one, this is going to look ugly, and that's fine. But day two and day three and day four are going to come, and you're going to start finding that you're writing things that you hadn't even thought about in a while under the passion side. You're going to start uncovering more skills and expertise that you hadn't even really thought that you might have, and you're going to be like, wow, these are actually skills that I do have. And now this is going to be developing over the course of these first 3 to 4 days. And then by day 5, this is where all the fun happens. In day 5, you're going to wake up, and you're going to start writing things down on a piece of paper, and you're going to start seeing an intersection between your passions and your skill sets. You're going to start seeing an overlap on some areas that you actually get fired up about and that you actually have skills in. And this is what I love to refer to as your zone of genius. There's a great book by Gay Hendricks called The Big Leap, and he talks so eloquently about the zone of genius. And if anybody has given that a read, you'll know how powerful that thought process is. And this is what you're going to find for yourself by day 5. You're going to find that you are stumbling into and upon your zone of genius. And this zone of genius is going to be where your passions and expertise collide, where they overlap. And this is where things, I'm not going to say they get funny because they don't, but it's just, it happens every single time. It happened to me 100%, and it's happened to every one of my individual one-on-one mentees, and I've had over 40 now. And of the podcast paradisers that have done it, and that number is now in the thousands, it just happens across the board. You're gonna wake up day 5, you're gonna do this, you're gonna find your zone of genius. It is absolutely gonna happen. But then guess what? You're gonna Google it, and then you're gonna say, but John, somebody's already doing it. Ho hum, back to the drawing board. My zone of genius, somebody's already doing it somewhere in this world. Maybe in, Eastern France, maybe in Barbados, I don't know, but they're doing it already. My zone of genius is scratched. And this is where I kind of get a little military. My officerness kind of comes back, and I say, soldier, about face 180 degrees. In fact, it would be a massive red flag. If you Googled this, your actual zone of genius, and nothing appeared, that would mean that nobody's figured out how to turn this into a viable business, and that's a red flag. The fact that somebody else is doing it, that is proof of concept. Now you need to do it differently. You need to add your USP, that unique selling proposition, and you need to add your personality. You need to add that special uniqueness that only you can bring. And let's talk real quick about Entrepreneur on Fire. Was I the first person to interview entrepreneurs? Absolutely not. So how did I do it differently? Well, I decided to be a little crazy, a little cray-cray, and do it 7 days a week. Nobody was doing it 7 days a week, so I did it a little bit differently. What was my USP? What was that unique selling proposition? Well, if you listen to my interview with John Morrow, what did you hear? You heard a story about his failure, or not just a singular, but about a failure that he decided to share with us, and about his lessons learned. He shared a story about his aha moment and the steps that he took to turn that aha moment into success. John Morrow shared his proudest moment that he's ever had. And then he shared what he's kicking butt in right now, what's firing him up. And then he answered 6 really to-the-point lightning round questions. So what is my USP? I have a very specific format, a very specific flow that's unique to Entrepreneur on Fire, but that all of my listeners know, when I press the play button, I know that I'm going to get John Morrow talking about a failure story. I know that I'm going to get him talking about his aha moment. I'm going to hear his journey as an entrepreneur. I'm not going to press play and have the guest talk, about him dog sitting for the weekend. No, that is not what you're going to get on Entrepreneur on Fire. You're going to get that flow. And then, of course, I added my personality, and you can't but help, my friends, add your personality, and that is powerful. Now, these next few slides, this is let me put up a little red flag of my own. These are what I consider the most important slides on this segment right here if you are in this stage. And we're all in this stage, because 99% of podcasters get this dead wrong. And I got this dead wrong for way too long, and it hurt my business. Defining your avatar. Now, your avatar is that one perfect listener. Now, I ask people all the time when I'm speaking on stage, I say, who has a podcast? Awesome. Okay, you in the back, stand up and tell me your one perfect listener. Who's your avatar? And that person will stand up, they'll puff their chest out, and they'll say, well, John, my avatar are men between the ages of 20 and 50 who live in North America, drink coffee, and watch football on the weekends. And I just kind of smile and I say, well, that's exactly what I expected you to say, because you are in the 99 percentile, where I recently was myself too, by the way. That's a targeted demographic. That is not an avatar. That's not one perfect listener. That is a targeted demographic, and that's okay, because we all need a targeted demographic, but that's not going to help you in the long run. What's going to help you is knowing your avatar inside and out. So let me share with you my avatar. What an avatar should sound like. And there's a picture of him right there. He's Jimmy. He's driving. He's not looking at the road. He's got headphones in. He's doing a lot of things wrong, but I still love him because he's my avatar. And he's 34 years old. He has a wife. He has 2 kids, ages 3 and 5. Jimmy drives by himself to work every single day on a 27-minute commute. Jimmy gets to work and sits in a cubicle for 9 hours at a job he hates. Then he jumps in his car, drives home. It takes him 32 minutes to get home because he gets stuck in a little bit of traffic in the evening. Jimmy gets home and he plays with his kids for a little while, loves doing that, has dinner with the family, puts his kids to bed, hangs out with his wife for a little bit, and then he sits on the couch. And Jimmy has a little pity party for himself. And he says, why? Why do I spend 80% of my waking hours doing things that I don't enjoy doing? Driving to work, sitting in a cubicle, driving home. Why do I spend 10% of my waking hours doing what I love? Only 10%. Playing with my kids, hanging out with my wife, spending time with family. And then why do I spend the other 10% of my life sitting on this couch having a pity party for myself? Jimmy, my friends, is my avatar. Every single morning when Jimmy's driving to work on that 27-minute commute, he needs to be listening to Entrepreneur on Fire so he can hear a story like John Morrow's failure and how John learned stuff from that failure. So Jimmy can see, you know what? It's okay to fail. John Morrow failed, and look how successful he is. Maybe I can fail too and still be successful. That's okay. And then when he's driving home, Jimmy needs to hear John's aha moment and what John actually did to turn that aha moment into success. So Jimmy can start to visualize and see and unpack what it looks like to take an idea and turn it into success. And then Jimmy needs to be sitting on the couch at night, and instead of having a pity party for himself all by himself, he needs to be hearing John's answers to my lightning round. When John's saying, what stopped him from being an entrepreneur at the very beginning? What habits does he have that contributes to his success? What's the best advice that John Morrow's ever had? What is an actual resource that John recommends and uses? What is John's #1 recommendation for a book? What is that John's incredible answer to that $500 question? These are the type of things that Jimmy needs to be putting in his head. Not just listening to Miley Cyrus on the radio, feeling sorry for himself to and from work. No, Entrepreneur on Fire. So guess what? I know my avatar. I know Jimmy. So when I get to one of those 1,000 forks in the road, and my friends, we will all come to 1,000 forks in the road. And just like me, you're going to make the exact same mistake at this fork in the road. You're going to think that you need to make that decision. You're going to spend time, energy, effort, and money at that exact fork right there, right in the middle, that diverging fork. And you're going to spend so much of that bandwidth, your very limited time resource, trying to make a decision. And guess what? You're not the person that should be making that decision. I shouldn't be making this decision about going left or right for Entrepreneur on Fire. Guess who should be? My avatar, Jimmy. I just have to stand at this fork in the road and say, WWJD. What would Jimmy do? And then I'm off to the races. Left, right, left, right. I don't waste any more time at all of these different forks in the road. This should be a huge weight being lifted off your shoulders for those of you that are really understanding these implications right here. If you now understand that you can sit down and craft an avatar, in 500 words, in 1,000 words, and then actually craft that avatar in a way that you know that avatar inside and out, that you know the answers to every single one of these forks in the road, it takes away all the uncertainty. It takes away all the fear because you just ask your avatar. Let me drive this home even more because there's some questions I get every single day. John, what should I podcast about? How long should my podcast be? Should I do an interview or a topic-based podcast? How many times per week? What category should I be in? Every single time my answer is the same. Why are you asking me these questions? I'm not going to listen to your podcast. I'm sorry. Like, I might listen to it once or twice, but I can guarantee you that I am not your avatar. You know, John Lee Dumas, me, I'm not your avatar. So WWYAW, what would your avatar want? And if they can't answer that question, I say, go and define and create your avatar, and then come back to me. But then a lot of people who have actually sat down and created their avatar, a little spark comes into their eyes, and they say, you know what? I know what my avatar would want. Thanks. And they're off to the races. So let's talk about equipment. I've already broken down some barriers. I've taken you on a visual tour of my studio here, those of you that were on time. And let me check in and see here. Yeah, we're still over 450 people live, so amazing. Keep on being active, guys. Kate EO Fire's taking all your questions. I broke down all that equipment, all the equipment that I use here in my studio, but now let's talk specifics. To podcast, all you need is a computer, a microphone, and recording software. Now, 99% of you that are listening have a computer or a computer-like device. And believe me, these days, a computer-like device equals a smartphone. You can podcast amazingly from your smartphone. So let's talk microphones. In ascending order from low cost to high cost, let me give you my 3 recommendations. The Logitech ClearChat is a $29.99 investment that will take your audio quality from a 2, which is just talking at your computer, to a 7, a very good and definitely good enough audio quality for a professional sounding podcast. Every single Wednesday, before my Entrepreneur on Fire interviews, my guests get an email that says, if you don't at least have this quality microphone, buy it now. Here's the link. You owe it to yourself as a successful and inspiring entrepreneur, and you definitely owe it to Fire Nation. And if I get you on Entrepreneur on Fire and your audio quality is not up to snuff because you didn't take this action, then I'm probably going to cancel the interview because my listeners deserve better. And that's why my audio quality on my podcast has always remained very high, because I hold my guests to a standard. And this is the minimum standard that I hold them to for $29.99. My number 1 recommended microphone by far, because this is when you combine cost and value and actual quality, this is the best microphone on the market. It's the ATR 2100. It's $59.99. This is what Kate, the girl that's in there right now in the chat room, Kate EO Fire, my partner, my girlfriend that just works in the business here with me. Her podcast is Kate's Take. The audio quality, amazing. This is what she uses for her podcast. We made $307,000 last month. Believe me, we could afford a more expensive microphone if we wanted to, but there's no need. This is the best microphone on the market when it comes to cost and quality, so go for it. This is the one I recommend above all microphones. You can just put this, type these letters right in numbers into Amazon. It'll be at your doorstep in 2 days. ATR 2100. It'll take your audio quality from a 7, which is the Logitech, to an 8.5. Now the high cost, and if you were hanging out at the beginning and you saw the video walkthrough, you saw mine. There it is in action right there. I'm speaking into it. As you can see, my arms and hair are just a little bit on fire there. Is the Heil PR40. This is a $327 mic. This is the Cadillac, so to speak, of podcasting microphones. I just can't say enough about it. I think it's an amazing microphone for all the reasons, but unnecessary. If I was starting over today, even if I had $1 million in the bank, if I was starting over today, I would go with the ATR 2100, because there's no reason to go with the Heil PR40 until you're way down the road and you want to go from an 8.5 to a 9.8, because this is going to bring you to a 9.8 audio quality. But the reality is, only people with headphones on that actually have some experience in audio quality are even going to be able to tell the difference. So believe me, the ATR 2100, this guy right here, my number 1 recommendation, Heil PR40, amazing, but not needed for most people at this stage. So now let's talk about recording and editing software. I'm going to take a quick sip of water and be right back with you. Okay, I'm back. Recording and editing software. This is the Cadillac. This is my number 1 recommendation. This is what I use. It's called Adobe Audition. This is how I record and edit my podcasts. I have live training coming up in just a few slides here where I'm going to show you in live, actually a video of me doing just this, recording and editing in Adobe Audition. But I just wanted to share with you right now, this is $20 per month, the Adobe Creative Cloud. You need to subscribe to that. I think it's the best $20 I spend per month. But if you want to go a free option, there is Audacity, my number 2 recommendation. Works for both Macs and PCs, completely free. It's an amazing recording and editing software for its cost, which, by the way, is free. Within Podcasters Paradise, we have over 40 video tutorials to make sure that you are an Adobe Audition Pro. Same thing with Audacity, and same thing with GarageBand. This is my number 3 recommendation. This is only for Mac users. This comes pre-installed. It is also free, and we have great tutorials in Podcasters Paradise about how to record and edit and all of that jazz in Paradise. Now, if you just want to record interviews via Skype, you're like, I just want to record interviews. I want to call up people on Skype and do Skype-to-Skype calls. This is for both video and audio only. So Note, this will record video Skype calls, and this will also record audio-only Skype calls. So you can do both. For a Mac, Ecamm call recorder. For a PC, Pamela. They're both about $29. It's a one-time fee, and they're incredibly simple to use. And we have tutorials on exactly where to get these, how to set them up, and all that jazz, recording and editing within Paradise. So is tech holding you back? Do you still think that your studio needs to look like this Anchorman studio from back in the 1970s, this retro with microphones coming down from the ceiling, speakers everywhere, soundboards, glass, all these buttons? Absolutely not. This is the 2014, soon to be 2015, Entrepreneur on Fire studio. This is it, my friends. Pretty simple, pretty easy to just focus and say, hey, there's a microphone there, there's a computer there, this guy's off to the races. And that's how we roll, and that's as simple as it can be. So I promise you that live training, well, we've arrived to the 8-step process of how to record and edit your podcast, how to add an intro and outro, how to actually export that MP3 podcast, how to tag that MP3 podcast, how to upload your now tagged MP3 podcast to your media host, which we recommend Libsyn, how to schedule it to be released on a certain date, how to actually publish that episode, and then how to submit it to the directory of iTunes. Now again, I said I was going to do this in under 3 minutes. I show you in Adobe Audition. This is where we're at right here. This is the Adobe Audition program. So here we go in 3, 2, 1. Click on multi-track. I'm going to call the session name Podcast Workshop. I'm going to click the OK button. I'm going to hit the record button, and I'll say prepare to ignite. That will be the podcast episode for sample purposes. I'm going to click the open button on the left here and grab the intro and the outro, which I've pre-recorded. I'm going to slide the podcast episode over to the right. I'm just dragging it. And I'm going to drag and drop the intro at the beginning. I'm going to drag up the podcast episode, and I'll drag the outro, the end, over to the end. And so boom, there's the episode. Now I'm going to export this, which is just like saving a Word document, to my desktop. And now I'm going to open up ID3 Editor, and this is going to allow me to tag the actual MP3 with a title, artist, album. I'm going to actually click that podcast tab too, so I can enable podcast tag. And then under lyrics, I'll put a little woot woot. This is actually where you're going to put the description. But again, for sample purposes, a little woot woot will work. And we'll add the logo, which is a 1400 by 1400 logo for Entrepreneur on Fire. Click Updates. And now we're going to launch Libsyn, Liberated Syndication, which is my media host that I use and recommend. And go to Add New Episode. Once you click Add New Episode, you're going to go to Add Media File, that green button, and upload from hard drive. And there's my tagged MP3 right there. And as you can see now, that MP3 is actually being loaded in real time. That green bar is going across. And I'll give the title again, the Podcast Workshop. That description's woot woot. Make sure you clear the formatting. iTunes is really big on that. And this whole section right here is the general settings. You don't do anything on an individual episode, and so you don't even worry about this. In Paradise, I give you a full tutorial on how to set up your general settings once, and then you're good to go. You go to the bottom and click Schedule Release Expiration and click on Set a New Release Date, and you can choose that release date. I'm going to choose July of 2019 just because I don't actually want this to publish, because again, it's just for a sample. And we'll say 2 a.m., never expire, media files always available, and click Publish. Boom, publish. But let's check our work under Scheduled for Release. These are a whole list of the podcast scheduled for release. I can check the details, comments, links, edits, and more. And now I'm going to go to Destinations and grab the Libsyn Classic feed, which is another word for the RSS feed. I'm going to copy that and open Submit a Podcast in iTunes. That's going to open up a page where I can just paste the podcast feed URL and then click that word Continue, and guess what? You have just done the 8 steps, and I just timed myself. That was 2 minutes and 42 seconds. I just took you through the entire podcasting process, how to record, edit, add an intro, an outro, export that MP3, tag that MP3, upload it to your media host, Libsyn, schedule it, publish it, and then submit it to iTunes, all in 2 minutes and 42 seconds. And guess what? You only have to do step number 8 the very first time, and then it's automatic after that, just like your RSS feed is automatic. Now, what's really important about this 8-step process for you to know is that I went through this very quickly because I wanted to show you what it could look like in real time when you get good at this stuff, which you will very quickly. In Podcasters Paradise, we break down every single one of these steps one by one so that you, the actual podcaster, fellow and future, can just really focus and concentrate and take your time and get to know every one of these steps very intimately so that you're comfortable with them before you start ripping through all of them in just 2 minutes and 42 seconds. So now we're going to get to the next segment. What we talked about already was my journey. We talked about how to create a podcast. We talked about the topic. We talked about the avatar. And then we talked about launching your podcast. We talked about the actual equipment it takes to actually have a podcast. And I hope that you feel great about that now because it's not much, my friends. It's not much at all. But now let's talk about growing your audience. And I want to take you through the top 5 tactics to grow your podcast audience. And number 1 is leverage podcast directories. Now, for those of you that listen to John and my podcast, you might have chosen to listen to it through iTunes or my website or some podcasting app. There's a lot of different ways that you can listen to podcasts. But the 3 major directories that are out there in the world today are SoundCloud, Stitcher Radio, and iTunes. Within Podcasters Paradise, we take you and do a deep dive on SoundCloud and on Stitcher Radio, and we show you how to maximize these directories, how to leverage them in a really powerful way. Just because of timing today, I'm not going to get into SoundCloud and Stitcher Radio. We're going to talk and focus on iTunes, which, by the way, is the elephant in the room in a good way. 85% of my downloads, and likely 85% of yours as well, comes from iTunes. They are the behemoth. They're the Walmart of podcasting. 525 million active users within iTunes. That means in the last month, almost double the population of the United States of America was hanging out in iTunes, was consuming content in iTunes. Were they consuming your content? Not if you don't have a podcast, but I'll tell you, they were consuming Tim Ferriss, Dave Ramsey, Pat Flynn, John Lee Dumas, Jim Cramer, and the list goes on, because we do have podcasts. So that is a massive number. This is a massive directory. And you know what's shocking is that 45 million people search iTunes every single month. That search bar that I circled in yellow gets utilized 45 million times every single month. So there's definitely words that I want to rank for. I want to rank for the word entrepreneur. I want to rank for the word social media. I want to rank for the word small business. And I rank for all of these words incredibly highly. Look at just this screenshot example of the word entrepreneur. The number 2 result in all of iTunes for the word entrepreneur is entrepreneur on fire. This drives me incredible amounts of organic traffic every single day. And this is absolutely outstanding. What words, my friends, do you want to rank for? Is it coaching? Is it blogging? Is it fitness, health, gardening, whatever it might be? You can rank for these words by leveraging iTunes SEO. And I'm going to show you how to do that in a couple slides here in another live training exercise. 315 million people access iTunes on their iPhones every single month. That means that 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, you have basically the population of the United States around the globe that is within arm's reach of your voice, of your message, of your brand. And the latest iTunes update, iOS 8, the actual podcast app was forced downloaded and is now a native and unremovable app. And that is just blowing the doors off of the discoverability of podcasts. And let's talk about the dashboard of cars. 90 million people drive to work by themselves every single day in the United States of America. Think of what that means around the globe. Well, Apple CarPlay came out, and they're going in the dashboard of every single car coming off the lot in 2015 and beyond. You better believe that the last barrier is now being shattered. You get in your car, you turn it on, boom, press that purple button that's going to pop up on that dash, and your voice, your message, your podcast is going to be streaming through the 8 car speakers at the touch of a button. It's a total game changer. Android Auto is following because Google's trying to catch up now. Stitcher Dash is already in the dashboard of 5 different make and models of cars as we speak right now. My friends, this is happening. This is the present, not only the future. So number 2, growth tactic. Maximize new and noteworthy. So if you haven't started your podcast yet, or if your podcast is less than 8 weeks old, you are in for a treat because iTunes does something that is unbelievable and is not replicated in any other content media form, period. They're going to take the new podcasters, the podcasters that are less than 8 weeks old, that have just launched all the way up to 56 days, and they're going to say, you know what? We're going to feature you in the best advertising space for podcasting in the entire world. And that's the top 2 rows of every single category in iTunes. Whatever category it may be, your podcast has the opportunity to be featured at the very top. And you're only competing against other brand new podcasts that frankly don't know what they're doing. And if you are in Podcasters Paradise and you follow our perfect launch plan, you can almost guarantee that you know what you're doing and you're going to be dominating this category, new and noteworthy. I wish I could relaunch Entrepreneur on Fire every single 8 weeks. I mean, that was an amazing opportunity for me and everybody that launches a podcast. So within Entrepreneur on Fire, and specifically Podcasters Paradise, we have the perfect launch plan. It's a 10-part video series, which I'm going to be showing you in a little bit here, that walks you through the perfect launch plan. A couple keynotes I want to bring up. You have to launch with episode 000. This is your About Me podcast, where you talk about you, the host, as well as what your podcast is going to be about, your vision, your frequency. It's very critical to hit some key points here. Everybody has an About Me page on your blog. This is your About Me podcast, and you have to do it right. You also want to launch with 3 shows, not 10. That's overwhelming. Not 1. That's a huge mistake, and I, again, tell you exactly why in the perfect launch plan video tutorials. You want to launch with 3 shows. And your new vocabulary needs to be subscribe, rate, and review. It's not, can you download, can you listen to my podcast? No, it's, can you go to my podcast and subscribe? Because when people subscribe, they now become subscribers, and they're alerted when they log back into iTunes and you release a new episode, and it's an absolute game changer. And then, of course, ratings and reviews are really important for your ranking in iTunes, and your ranking in iTunes drives your organic traffic. And I'm going to dive more into that coming up in a second. Number 3, leverage the audience of your guests. Look at these faces: Seth Godin, Tim Ferriss, Barbara Corcoran, Gary Vaynerchuk, Chris Brogan. These are all entrepreneurs that I had on my podcast within 90 days of launching Entrepreneur on Fire. Why? I had no experience. I had no online presence. But guess what? I had a podcast. And to them, that was a platform. And they are very open to jumping up on platforms. And so now that I had these great entrepreneurs on my show, how can I leverage the audience? Well, what do entrepreneurs have in common, especially successful and inspiring ones? John Morrow, to be highlighted right here. They have massive audiences. So every single morning, my first email goes to my guest whose interview just went live, and I say, John Morrow, your interview just went live on Entrepreneur on Fire, and OMG, you rocked the mic. I'd be honored if you would share your journey, your stories with your audience. Here are all the links to do so. And I give them all the links to do so. I make it simple for them to share, and guess what? They do every single time. So this snowball effect starts. Me having no audience, me having no experience. Now I'm having these great entrepreneurs with awesome audiences. They are now sharing my podcast, Entrepreneur on Fire, with their audiences, and this is happening 7 days a week. This can be comparable to guest blogging and guest posting. So very powerful stuff, my friends. And number 4, leverage existing communities. Because you might have some people on this workshop right now that are saying, but John, what if I don't interview people? What if I just want to have a topic-based podcast? Well, that's a great idea, by the way, because topic-based podcasts are awesome and they're fun and they're really flexible. So now you need to leverage existing communities. Go to LinkedIn groups, go to Facebook groups, Google Plus groups, meetup.com groups, and find groups with your avatars, engaging, thriving, active groups, and join them. They're free. Become a member. Become a valuable member. And don't get in there and just start spamming. Get in there and start adding value. Start giving support. Start giving guidance. Start asking for support and guidance. Have your avatar be seen in there over and over again. Dedicate time every single day just to jump in there for 5 minutes. It's so easy to do, but it's also so easy not to do. So 99.9% of people don't do it. But those that do see massive results because they've now established themselves as people of value, so that when that question happens a month from now and they're valuable members, guess what? These actual podcasters can go in and they can say, you know what, I actually answered that question in episode 12. Here's the link. And now not just the person that asked the question, but everybody's going to flock to that podcast episode because they're all avatars. They all have the same questions. And that's going to drive incredible value and listeners to your podcast. And we do these monthly private exclusive podcast webinars with today's top podcasters. And we had Pat Flynn on 2 months ago. And Pat Flynn we were talking about this exact tactic in more detail because that's what we do. We talk about tactics, about how to grow your podcast and monetize. And Pat said, well, how about email the group leader for an interview? And I was just like, wait a second, let's not skip by this. This is an amazing idea. Email the group leader? Yes, check. Let's do that. And that just has become amazing because guess what? If you become a person of value and the group leader sees that, and then you ask that group leader after you've established value to come on your show and you make it a great interview, which you will, then you better believe that when that interview goes live, that group leader is going to share with the entire group that they've created, and that leader is known, liked, and trusted by that group, and that's going to be an amazing way for you to get seen, to get noticed, to have your podcast just be found in a powerful way by your perfect listeners. And without prejudice, the most powerful online group for podcasters is Podcasters Paradise, our private Facebook group. Every single Friday, we have a Pay It Forward Friday where we exchange honest iTunes reviews. And as you can see, within 5 hours, Jessica, our community leader, posted this. We had over 72 comments. That quickly grew to hundreds of comments. We had over 250 comments on the last Friday one. People are in there paying it forward, sharing, giving ratings, giving reviews, just being supportive to each other. That's the power of community. And here's another example about what if you have a question on your logo or any question you might have. Efton had a question on his logo. And within 12 hours, he had over 36 comments of people helping him, giving him advice, criticism, support, critiques, feedback on this logo. Absolutely priceless. And what happens when you have a family, when you have a support group for podcasting? Well, every red circle you see here is a podcast paradiser in New and Noteworthy. Over half of the New and Noteworthy podcasts are podcast paradisers because of that support, because of that community that we've created. So number 5 is social media. And this is something that is just way too big to talk about in depth because there's so many social media platforms, but you do need to realize this. Every single social media platform is valuable, and every single social media platform, Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, Google+, Instagram, Pinterest, has their own specific and special ways to maximize your leverage with your podcast. And within Podcasters Paradise, as you can see in that screenshot there, we have video tutorials on every single social media platform and how to best leverage social media for your podcast. So I promise you that live training about the 2 super hacks that 99% of podcasters are not taking advantage of. It's called the sub-headline in 3 categories. So quick wake-up call to the 418 amazing people that are still live here on this. Let me just tell you, this is going to be pretty impressive. So tune in. I'm about to hit go on this video tutorial. We are here in iTunes right now, and let's give Jim Cramer, Mad Money's podcast, a look. What is Jim Cramer doing with his sub-headline? Well, sadly, not too much, my friends. Sad to say, not too much. In fact, nothing. Now, who's somebody that's ranked higher than Jim Cramer? Well, there's me, Entrepreneur on Fire. Let's check that out. Look at my sub-headline. John Lee Dumas interviews Tim Ferriss, Seth Godin, Gary Vee, Pat Flynn on social media, online business, podcasting. Well, what does that mean? Well, remember that search bar that I told you about that 45 million people use? Let's type in Tim Ferriss. What's the number 2 result for the word Tim Ferriss in all of iTunes? Entrepreneur on Fire. You better believe that drives traffic. Let's try Seth Godin. I hit enter on Seth Godin. The number 4 podcasting results for Seth Godin in all of iTunes is Entrepreneur on Fire. Amazing. Now let's go ahead and give Pat Flynn a try, my buddy that lives down the road here in San Diego. He has 2 podcasts, Smart Passive Income and Ask Pat. Well, Entrepreneur on Fire is the number 2 result in all of iTunes for the word Pat Flynn. I even outrank his second show, all because I utilized the sub-headline here in Libsyn. Under Destinations, Libsyn Classic Feed, go down to the Author tab. It's a hidden place. Believe me, I didn't find this for months, but I found it, and now I've been screaming from the mountaintops. This is where iTunes searches SEO-wise. Make it happen, guys. Now let's talk about 3 categories. You can see that I use business, education, and technology. These are the 3 categories that I've chosen. Now, what does this mean? Go down to education. What's hot now? Well, entrepreneurs in what's hot under education. Let's go into technology, the 3rd category that I chose. What is also in what's hot in the technology section? Boom, Entrepreneur on Fire. Now, what does this mean exactly? This is something that's really powerful, because when you launch your podcast, and people that have already launched podcasts are kind of like scratching their heads right now, as I was, because iTunes only asks for 1 category and then a subcategory of that. So I chose business with a subcategory of careers. Well, I stumbled upon this page in Libsyn and I said, this can't be right. You can't choose 3 iTunes categories. Well, I went ahead and just selected education and technology just to see what would happen. I woke up the next morning and now I'm being featured in 3 categories. 300% more, 3 times more categories than I was originally. And this is mind-blowing. This is boggling, because there's going to be people that search education podcasts that would never search business podcasts. And the same goes for technology. There's people that will go in the technology category that would never go in the business section or education. Powerful stuff to realize, my friends, and this is where that happens. Okay, so we're going to hit this last segment. We're going to hit this hard. This is a powerful segment. We're going to just continue to power through, because it's all about monetizing in this last segment. Because the number 1 money question that I get is, John, how do you monetize to the tune of over $200,000 every single month? So I'm going to talk to you about the top 5 ways that I've monetized in November. Number 5 is coaching. And I'm actually I have these in parentheses right here, because I actually stopped coaching 2 months ago. For 2 years, I was generating this kind of revenue every single month in, month out, with one-on-one coaching. And I wanted to leave this in because it's really important to know this is the first way that I ever monetized, and this is going to be an amazing way for any new podcaster to monetize for a significant amount of time. For 2 years I did this. I just stopped because, number 1, I had a ton of demand backed up, but I just still was like, this is not how I want to spend my time in this one-on-one area. That was a decision that I had to make for my business at this point. But you, starting off with your podcast, and me, this was an amazing way for me to start monetizing. I started mentoring people one-on-one. I was charging $2,000 per month for 4 20-minute phone calls and reasonable email access. I made sure to make that word reasonable email access so people knew that they weren't going to be going back and forth with me all day, every day. And you can go to eofire.com/mentor. You can see how I still have that page set up. So you can see how I set up my mentor program that, again, is closed. I no longer mentor. But this is an amazing way that you can monetize, because your listeners will know, like, and trust you. And they are going to want to be mentored by you if they see you as somebody who is at where they want to be. And they will. So this is an amazing way to monetize. We have an incredible tutorial on how to set this entire coaching and mentoring program up in Paradise. Number 4 is a membership mastermind, and ours is Fire Nation Elite. We generated over $11,000 in the month of November alone via Fire Nation Elite, and we launched this now over 19 months ago. This has been a 5-figure recurring revenue for us every single month, 5 figures per month for the last 19 months, because we have 85 people paying us $200 per month every single month. And this is for a membership mastermind. And this is something that you as a podcast host need to be establishing sooner than later, because your listeners are going to look at you as an authority figure with credibility. There are going to be a certain proportion of those people that want more access to you, that want VIP access to you. You can give that to them. They're also going to want more access to the other VIP or elite listeners. They're going to know that, hey, there's some other listeners of this podcast that are probably awesome people, and if they connect with this podcast, I want to connect with them. Give them a tribe. Give them an arena, excuse me, a forum to interact with. It's incredibly important and valuable. And again, go to firenationelite.com. You can see how we set up our membership mastermind, and we have incredible tutorials within Paradise about this specifically. We're a closed mastermind. We could have hundreds of people in, but we decided to close the doors because we know that 85 is the right number for our mastermind. So we keep it there. You can make that own decision for yourself, but creating a membership mastermind is a great way to monetize your podcast. Affiliates. We generated over $20,000 in affiliate revenue in the month of November alone. This is when I recommend Bluehost or Lead Pages or any product or service on my podcast, and I drive people back to the resources page, and I say, hey, go to eofire.com/resources if you want to check this out. We might have a video tutorial about this, or that's where our affiliate link is. We're completely upfront about that, because there's our listeners that will go out of their way to go to our resources page as a way to thank us for providing free, valuable, and consistent content. And as you can see, it paid off royally, and it has for a number of months now, even years. Number 2 is sponsorships. Sponsorships are an amazing way to monetize. If you heard my podcast, you hear that I have 2 sponsors per show: 99 Designs, LegalZoom, Lynda.com, Squarespace. Those are examples of my sponsors. And these sponsors pay top dollar to get in front of my audience, Fire Nation. So whoever your audience is, believe me, you are going to have sponsors that want to get in front of those listeners in the sponsorship model, because they know that your listeners know, like, and trust you, the host. So if you are going to recommend those products or services, which is why it's important to test and to really like and want to promote those products and services, which I make sure I do with all of mine, then they are going to pay top dollar because they know that's going to be a great conversion for their products and services. And I've had sponsors with me for over a year now who continue to see great ROI, return on investment, and they keep coming back for more. And in Paradise, my friends, we show you how to find sponsors. We give you email templates. We give you contracts that we use to lock it in. We share with you how to negotiate. Everything you need to know about sponsorships is all in Paradise. And number 1, my friends, and this is one you want to sit up for, because believe me, this is exciting, and this is where really we're focusing all of our energy in 2015 on, because this is where it's at. Products. You creating your products. Because you're a podcast host, you're going to be building an audience. You're going to ask that audience, what are you struggling with? They're going to come back with pain points, with struggles, with obstacles, with challenges. You are going to create the solutions to those challenges, to those obstacles, and turn them into products. That's what we've done with Podcasters Paradise. It's now done over $1.5 million since we opened the doors just a little over a year ago. In the month of November alone, we did $212,000 in revenue. Webinar on Fire, we teach people how to create and present webinars that actually convert. Like this webinar right here, that generated $6,427 in just 1 month, in just November. These are just a couple products that we've created because we've listened to our audience, and you can too. So in the month of November alone, we generated over $307,000. We post, as John said at the beginning here, every single one of our income reports at eofire.com/income, where we get down to the penny about all the money that we've made so you can emulate our success. And we get down to the penny of all the money that we lost and that we spent so you can avoid our mistakes and our failures. And believe me, we have more mistakes and failures every month than success. And that's how I want it, because that means if we didn't, we wouldn't be trying hard enough. But I don't want you to go through the same mistakes that we did. We've already proven it for you. Don't do it. So these income reports can be so valuable for you. Wow. So we've come a long way in an hour and 6 minutes, and I want to take a deep breath because you guys have been awesome. I've been checking that chat room. You know, we just have people still rocking and rolling, still just under 400 people. We have Channel Wisdom, Tracy Ariel. We still have Inape J. We have Scott Markowitz, ATP Radio, Shan Vanderleek, Gary Griffiths, just people just rocking and rolling. $5 Travel, Raspel. We have Copyright Matters, Living Out Loud. Guys, way to be awesome. Cat Sturts. Just people rocking and rolling on this chat room. Way to be awesome. Ask some great questions because I want to talk Podcasters Paradise. I want to share with you why Podcasters Paradise is the #1 podcasting community in the world, which, by the way, and we've recently made this this milestone, is now over 1,800 members of podcasters who are part of the same community looking to create, grow, and monetize their podcast. So Podcasters Paradise is made up of 3 components, and we're going to get into these 3 components right now. Component number 1 are the video tutorials. And we have over 200 video tutorials within Podcasters Paradise for beginners who are looking to create and launch their podcast, for intermediates who are looking to grow their audience, and of course for experts who are looking to monetize and create multiple streams of income. Component number 2, we have an incredible accountability section where we match you up with another podcaster who's at a similar place in your journey. And we do that for all Podcast Paradise members. And that is such an important part of you having an accountability partner and starting the creation of your mastermind. And then, of course, we have our private Facebook group, which is absolutely thriving. You know, we're now over 1,800 members. This is a 24-hour-a-day, 7-day-a-week support IT desk, basically, because any question you might have, you have people in here every single minute of every single day just supporting each other, guiding each other, being of incredible value. We have Aisha here at the top, says, just want to say I love this group. I'm in lots of private groups, but this one is one of the most helpful and is full of inspiring people. I mean, Aisha, thank you for that. And this is where you can exchange honest iTunes and Stitcher Radio reviews. We do that every Friday, Pay It Forward Friday. Find guests for your show. Find opportunities to be a guest on other shows. Exchange the latest tips, tools, and tactics. Get feedback for your logo, your format, your overall feel. Hone your interview skills by practicing with others. Get accountability partners, key, and so much more. And component number 3 are the monthly webinars we do with today's top podcasters. We've had Pat Flynn on twice. We've had Ramit Sethi. We've had Lewis Howes. We've had Amy Porterfield, Michael Hyatt. We had James Altucher last month. We're going to have John Morrow come on when he launches his podcast to talk about his success that is absolutely inevitable. And we do this every single month, exclusive for Paradisers. And I do an exclusive monthly Q&A session with you guys. I'm in there answering all your questions every single month on a live hangout. So without any further ado, let's dive in. I want to be the first to welcome you to Podcasters Paradise. And here we are. We're now inside of Paradise. And this is our welcome page where we have the announcements, live webinars coming up, our specials, our last 5 most recently added videos. You know, this is where you can join the Facebook group, the webinar updates, and there's a contact us form. But getting into the meat and potatoes is the create page. This is where you create your podcast. And every one of these sections, we get into something different. You know, we have the topic, avatar, and niche. And as you can see, like under here, creating your avatar. Every one of these is its own separate video tutorial you can open up, and it opens up into your own page where you consume this video at your leisure. And then we talk about name, artwork, format, podcast equipment, media host for your podcast, all things Libsyn, all things SoundCloud, your platform. This is not just podcasting. We talk about the 360-degree platform that we all should be building. Your website, setting up your social profiles, podcast style. Before you record, interview tactics and best practices. This 9-step process is critical for the interview process. Things I've learned over 800 interviews. Now let's talk about actually recording your podcast using Adobe Audition, Audacity, or GarageBand. They're all there for you. We have Skype. We have video podcast tutorials. And then we have the post-recording checklist. Now we get into edit your podcast, again, with Audition, with Audacity, with GarageBand. We have the complete podcast workflow that I was talking about earlier, this 9-step process, which is the entire complete podcast workflow, beginning to end. And then, of course, that perfect launch plan. This 10 video series right here takes you through how to basically guarantee you're going to launch your podcast with a bang in the best way possible. And then the best practice is to actually maximize that launch. And then, of course, this is where I want everybody that's part of John Morrow's community to be at one day, our success stories. And those are growing every single day. Then there's the grow section. This is growing your podcast audience with specific growth tactics, website tactics, email, social media, Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, Google+, Instagram, all the social media platforms, networking tactics, public relations, conferences to go to, HARO, help a reporter out. It's all there. And now let's talk about that viable business, how to monetize. Here's the top 9 ways to monetize your podcast, all waiting for you right here. I show you how to get an Audible sponsorship literally the day you launch your podcast in this video, so check that out. Sponsorships, everything you need to know about sponsorships and monetizing, everything you need template-wise, all of our templates are right here. All you do is click on that template form and boom, this template is here for you to utilize at your leisure. Affiliate relationships, like what John and I are doing right here, powerful stuff. Coaching, webinars, we have it all under monetization. We talked about the Accountability Matchmaker program. It's right here. Fill this out, and within 72 hours, you'll be matched up with an accountability partner. The Resources tab. This is where all the email templates, document samples, plugins, checklists, it's all right here for you. And then every resource you might even consider you need under Create. We continue to go down. This is everything. Under Grow, these are all the resources. Under Monetize, that you need to podcast, everything. And then we can check out the webinars that we've done right here. These are all the webinars we've done now for over the past year. Every one of them is recorded and archived for you to come back and watch. This is evergreen content. You know, these are all webinars that are still as powerful right now as they ever were. Q&A session, James Altucher, Rob Walsh of Libsyn, another Q&A session, Kristen Brown for PR. This is us, the Podcast Paradise crew at the conference podcast movement, having a blast. Another Q&A, Pat Flynn, Ramit Sethi, Q&A, Kate Erickson, Chris Ducka. This is Jamie from SoundCloud, Dan Franks, the podcast movement, Lewis Howes, Q&A session, Michael Hyatt, Amy Porterfield, Pat Flynn. They're all there for you, and it grows every single day. And my friends, this is my favorite tab. These are all the podcasts that have launched within Podcaster's Paradise. I mean, look at this is art, business, beauty, fashion, careers, comedy, design, education, fitness, nutrition, food. Look at all these successful podcast paradises that have come in, launched successful podcasts, and are off on their journey. This is a place that you can come, my friends, and you can see what podcasts are out here. You can engage with the actual podcast host and see if you can do interview swaps. Look at their guest list for great guest recommendations for you. You can listen to that podcast and see if they'd be good. It is all right here, and we add to this tab every day. In our guest tab, this is if you're looking for podcast guests. I mean, look at all of these people that are looking for guests, that are requesting specific guests. I mean, they want to be a guest on other shows, so if you're looking for guests for your shows, look at all these people that have signed up to be part of the guest exchange program. And of course, we have the map right here. This is a map that people have, you know, you have to opt in to do this, so this is by far not everybody in Paradise because not everybody wants to reveal where they're from, but those that do, you can see that we are all over the world, and if you zoom in, it keeps going out. And it's just so powerful to see, and the meetups that are happening because of the location. And then, of course, we have the contact form. And this has all the frequently asked questions that have ever happened with iTunes support, Stitcher support, SoundCloud, Libsyn, and of course our support, and all the FAQs. You have a question, it's probably answered right here. We're talking everything from legal to you name it, it's all right here. And we haven't even got to the best part yet, and that's the Podcast Paradise Facebook group. Here's Debbie right here who's asking about her logo. Look at this. She just posted, this is live, guys. She posted 12 hours ago. She already has over 40 comments of people giving her feedback, suggestions. This is just an incredibly engaging community. Every 4 hours ago, Philip posted this. And look at all this engagement. This is our official Pay It Forward Friday thread. Look at this, 221 comments on this. I mean, come on, guys. This is an absolutely engaging family community that we are supporting each other. Someone's posting a snapshot, boom, off to the races. Awesome. I mean, guys, look how far I've scrolled down now. I'm going to continue to scroll down, and we're still only at 16 hours ago. I mean, it's unbelievable, the engagement that we have. This is Podcasters Paradise. So let's get back to the keynote presentation, because listen, I've just showed you everything within Paradise, and now that you've seen Podcasters Paradise, let's go through a little price breakdown, a little investment for you. The video tutorials that we've done, over 203 now, we've actually even added more recently, we sell those for $37 each. That'd be $7,500 of individual packaged value. The exclusive monthly webinars we do with today's top podcasters, that's $1,000 per month. That's per month. The exclusive monthly Q&A with me, that's $1,000 per month. I don't even do mentoring anymore. This is probably even a low number at this point. The massive community of support and guidance that you have within Podcasters Paradise, the Accountability Matchmaker tab, that guest tab, it's priceless. Of course, I want to put a price tag on this. I can't. I mean, it's literally priceless. And if you were to purchase everything separately that you're seeing here, it would be $9,511 of individual value plus the pricelessness of the communities. But we package it all together. You know, I was talking with John and I said, listen, I am going to give your community the absolute lowest price that we are ever going to offer Podcasters Paradise for this day forward. It's never going to be offered for a lower price. Packaged together, everything, for 12 monthly installments of $147. And John shook his head. He said, nope, that's not good enough, John. That is not good enough. So I just smiled and said, John, you're right. I'm not going to charge $147 a month. You can join Podcasters Paradise today for 12 monthly installments of $97. And you can thank John Morrow for that. So $97, my friends, you can join Podcasters Paradise and become a lifetime member. And this lifetime member, by the way, is pretty key because we are soon taking away that lifetime membership. These 12 monthly installments are soon becoming recurring. I do want to actually also mention we do have a single pay option of $10.97. If you just want to pay all up front, you will save about $100. Over those, instead of paying the 12 monthly option, and this will also give you lifetime access. But I want to share with you 3 truths. I've always been 100% transparent. You know, I love how John, you know, just is so genuine in every single thing that he does, and I, you know, want to come across that way too, and insist upon coming across that way, which is why we publish the income reports and all of that stuff. And 3 truths, my friends. Paradise will be increasing to $147 a month. That is an absolute positive. We are increasing Paradise to $147 a month. And Paradise will never be offered at a lower price than you are locking in today. Never. And we are taking away lifetime access. It's going away. No, it's not going to be 12 monthly payments. It's going to be just $147 a month every single month, and you know, forever. But for 12 installments of $97 today, you are going to be grandfathered in to lifetime access for Podcasters Paradise. You will be grandfathered in as a lifetime member and be one of the 1,800 that are lifetime members. And people that join afterwards, They're not. Lifetime membership is going away. And something that I'm so incredibly proud of, and I know that this is one reason why John felt 100% comfortable having me come on and give you this workshop today, we have a 100% 60-day, no questions asked, money-back guarantee. So if you are even thinking that podcasting is in your 2015 and beyond, believe me, today is the day to join, because you're going to be locking in the lowest price you'll ever be able to lock in, and you're going to get 60 days to decide if this is for you. And if it's not, guess what? We understand. It might not be for you, and we have a no questions asked, 100% satisfaction refund policy. So if you are one of those people who knows that 2015 has podcasting in your future, or if you're even thinking that it might be in your future, go ahead and click that Join Paradise tab right below the video. That is going to take you to the order form where you can join Podcasters Paradise today for the lowest price we're ever going to be offering from this day forward. It'll never be lower. For lifetime access, which we're taking away, and with a 60-day 100% satisfaction guarantee. So this is why I want you to join Podcasters Paradise, because you want a better 2014 and beyond, because you want to inspire others, because you want a life of freedom and fulfillment, and because you want to share your message with the world. This is why I want you to join Paradise. And if you're thinking, one of the questions I have is, my podcast too niche? Like, is it too specific on a topic? Impossible. The more niche, the better, my friends. We have a painter, a teenager, a boomer, a fitness pro, somebody tipping the scales, ADHD, yoga, a Marine, social media, house flipping. Too niche does not exist, and the more niche you can come up with for a topic, the better. And Kate is taking notes right now of every one of the 333 people that are here live. I just checked that number. And you will be receiving my book, Podcast Launch, as a thank you. So you're awesome. Thank you for being here. And let's just talk about what some Paradisers are saying. We have Katie saying, I am so incredibly humbled that Business Women Rock Podcast took home 3 awards at the Regional Talkie Awards. My entire podcast would not be possible without the love, education, and support of this group. Thank you all so much to everyone who has given me so many great ideas and feedback. I love this community. Jim Dwayne says, support from Paradisers has taken the Inside Winemaking podcast to the #1 spot in food and category and new and noteworthy. I couldn't thank you guys enough for all the support you've provided and the ratings and reviews. Such an awesome group. And Scott says, I absolutely love Paradise. It's been a tremendous resource for me as an established podcast. Grow and monetize are my objectives, and this is helping me do just that. Really, really an incredible resource, from the community to the instructional videos and PDF templates. It has been outstanding, and I'm so glad I made the decision to join. Kathleen says, I have to say this is by far one of the best training programs I've invested in. The more I dig in, the more excited I get. By following John's model, I was able to hit #4 in education and careers in a little over a week after launching my podcast. The secret to all of this is to dig in, implement, and enjoy the results. Great job, John Lee Dumas and Kate Erickson. Woo-hoo! So my friends, the 10-minute countdown has commenced. I'm going to be taking all of your questions. We'll get John back on here to give us a final wrap-up as well. It's honestly been an honor. I don't always do this, but I want to do this now because just to show my thanks for John and all of his awesome community. I want to jump back on the video here. And again, just look everybody in the eye, in the virtual eye, and just say thank you. Thank you for being awesome. Thank you for being here to this moment in time, and for being on this podcast workshop. I truly hope you've gained a ton of value. I hope you've enjoyed interacting with Kate in the chat room. I know she's been an all-star. She always is. And I hope you can see that Kate and I have poured our hearts and our soul into Podcasters Paradise. And our now 1,800-person family of Podcast Paradisers, we couldn't be more proud of what they're accomplishing every single day. And I do just want to make this, pledge here, video to video, again, eye to eye, is that if you are even thinking that podcasting is in your future, today is the day to join Podcasters Paradise, because you'll be locking in a price that will never be lower. never be lower than we're offering you right now, John Morrow's audience. You will be locking in lifetime access, which we are taking away, and you have 60 days to decide if this is for you. And guess what? We totally understand if it's not, and we're going to give you 100% money back refund and wish you the best, because we have over 1,800 members who know that Paradise is 100x the value, and they are proof of our hard work, and they are proof of the value within. And if it's not for you, there's any number of reasons, and that is 100% fine, and we wish you the best finding that thing for you if it's not podcasting. But if it might be podcasting, Podcasters Paradise holds the answers for you without a doubt. So get that accountability partner, get in that Facebook group, check out those tutorials. It's all here for you. And John, I'd love to bring you back on now, and again, just thank you for being awesome, and you know, kind of maybe have a little chat about you know, what you saw with this workshop, and maybe some key points. And if you have any questions for me, of course I'm here, and of course we're going to be answering all the questions that your community has been posing, and I can't wait for that. So take it away.
Yeah, man. So again, thanks for doing this. This has been stunning. I've been watching the chat box, and people have been saying, you know, best webinar ever in there. So yeah, so yeah, it's been fabulous. People have loved it. I mean, I did want to tell everyone, while you're thinking about this, I don't know if you guys have noticed, but I don't promote a lot of other people's courses. This is only the second other course I've promoted in 2014 in the entire year. So the only other person that's gotten my endorsement is Danny Iny. No one else in all of 2014 has gotten that endorsement except John and Danny. And so I take your trust so incredibly seriously that I will not recommend something unless I've seen it, I believe in it, and I'll use it myself. Okay? So like John mentioned, I'm going to be starting a podcast probably this coming January. And I mean, I asked him, you know, can I see what's in Podcasters Paradise? Because I want to learn from the best, just like you need to learn from the best. And I mean, that's why I brought John here today. Whether you sign up or not, I mean, just the things that you learned here in this webinar should make your life a million times easier. And if you do sign up, you may see me there in the community. And I'll be right there with you learning. Now, you know, you could say I'm biased because, you know, John and I obviously did arrange a special deal for you guys. And if you buy, I am receiving a small commission. Okay? It doesn't affect your price any. But again, I'm about total transparency. And if all I cared about was the commission, I'd be offering different people's courses every week. But like I said, it's only the second one this year. So, you know, I encourage you to sign up for it. And, yeah, I mean, I'm waiting to see, too. You know, I was noticing some of your success stories, those are actually some of my students that I recognize, too. There. So yeah, it's a great match to pair up with blogging. So yeah, it's cool. I'm looking forward to seeing what happens here.
Well, John, what I love about that revelation you just shared about how some of our success stories are also your students, what I can also tell you is that those are action takers. Those are people that have invested in themselves with your products, with our products, and they're making massive headway. They're making massive waves in this online world because they've taken action. They've applied all the great learnings that you've provided, that I'm providing, and they're making success out of this stuff. And this is, you know, why I love is that, you know, all we can do, John, is provide the tools, is provide the forms, provide the community, and we give it all. And that's why I'm so genuine when I say, like, listen, if 59 days has gone by and you're not finding value in Paradise for any number of reasons, either because you haven't taken action or because something else has come up that has more of a priority or whatever it might be, then we want to make sure that you're using these funds in another direction that's going to work for you, which is why we offer this absolutely no questions asked 60-day, 100% money back guarantee, just for that reason specifically. So, John, we're going to dive into some questions from the people who have been typing in this whole time. So I'm going to Skype Kate over here and have her bring some questions over here so I can answer them one by one. And if you think you can add maybe a different perspective or add more to it, I mean, please jump in, and we're definitely going to do that. But let's just kind of start by welcoming a bunch of new Paradisers that have joined us today. We have Nancy Fire. Is that your real name, Nancy? Because I love that. From Denton, Texas. Welcome to Podcasters Paradise. We have James Peer coming at us from Fairview Park, Ohio. We have Rachel Pryor coming at us from Bath in the UK. We have Tony Fleming coming at us from Mableton, Georgia. What's up, Tony? We have Timothy Woodbury coming at us from Belmont, Mass. Go Patriots. Roseanne Paxman coming at us from Highland, Utah. We have Nawaki Ematu from New Jersey City, New Jersey. I'm really sorry, Mr. Nawakadi or Mrs. If I pronounce your name incorrectly, that's a tough one. We have Keith Boswell coming at us from Rockford, Minnesota. Or Michigan, excuse me. Virginia Reeves coming at us from Salem, Oregon. Welcome, welcome. We also have 55 Thinking Solutions coming at us from Madrid, Spain. Love the international. We have Stay at Home Yoga. That's Jennifer coming at us from Windermere, Florida. Beautiful area. We have Life Without Limits. That's Carol coming at us. Carol Cross from Littleton, Colorado. Welcome. Flora Brown Associates, that's just Flora Brown herself, coming at us from Anaheim, California. And guys, we have just more people pouring in every second. We have Scott Singpeel from Salt Lake City, Utah. But before I get carried away, I want to actually dive into some questions because we have some great ones. So let me kind of actually also slide back also to our counter so we can remain timeful. We're probably going to bust through that timer, I got to be honest. We have the first question that we have is, how long is this offer good for? Again, I want to be 100% transparent. Kate and I don't know exactly when we are going to raise the price of Podcasters Paradise. Again, we always raise the price to reflect the value within, and frankly, we are always adding value to Paradise. So it's only a matter of time. There's no ticking time. We're not going to give you some false scarcity because we don't have a specific date, but it's good right now. That's what we can tell you. $5 Travel says, how do we get people to review our podcast pilot before we officially launch? And $5 Travel, that's the beautiful thing about the private Facebook group. That's where all that magic happens. We have people reviewing each other's podcasts every day, honing their interview skills with each other all the time. Really powerful stuff. Oops, that timer stopped. We have Beth saying, a lot of people seem to think a mixer is necessary. Is that true? What will a mixer actually help me do? Beth, a mixer is not necessary. In fact, I'm going to recommend you don't even use one. Kate just uses her ATR 2100. That's a USB plug-in directly to her computer. It just goes right into her computer. And that's it. And it's amazing audio quality. A mixer, that for people that are really technical savvy, I mean, that can help. Oh, buzzer's going off. Let me pause that for a second. That can help with like the gain and judging and helping the volume on your guest even out with yours. But you can do all that stuff within Adobe Audition and within Audacity, and I show you how to do that. So you don't even need a mixer these days. To be honest with you, mixers are kind of just antiquated. They're kind of going out because you just have stuff like Adobe Audition, like Audacity, that just means you don't need that stuff. $5 Travel says, what about microphones for podcasting out in the field with multiple speakers for interviews, two hosts, etc. when I travel and do in-person interviews? Great question, $5 Travel. In Paradise, I have a travel podcasting section. What I recommend is a Roland. It's called a Roland digital recorder. And it's literally the size of a smartphone, and then you can plug in an actual AV cord into it, and coming out of that AV cord is going to be two cords that split off into two handheld ATR 2100 microphones, so you can have in-studio quality anywhere you are in the world. It's amazing, and it's all on an SD card that you can just plug into any computer after you're done recording it, and you can be editing it in minutes. It's amazing. Pontus says, how do you get entrepreneurs to interview when you are new with low traffic on your site? And maybe this would be a good place for you to jump in here, John, and I'll answer from the podcast side, and maybe you answer from the blogging side. From the podcasting side, how do you get entrepreneurs to interview when you're new and with low traffic on your site? You start small. You start with with entrepreneurs that are less well known, and you build your audience up. I didn't start with Seth Godin and Tim Ferriss. I built up to them by continuing to podcast and adding value and getting more recognition, so that when I did approach them, I had numbers to show, and I had different things that I could really show that was available. So that's really important stuff. It's like a building block. You start with a foundation, and then you build off of that. John, you want to jump in here maybe and talk about from the blogging perspective? Is there a different way you recommend people that are, when they're new, how to get traffic to their site, and maybe how to get people how to guest post on other sites, which would be kind of similar to podcasting?
Yeah, so there are a couple of different things you can do. And if you're still listening, write these down. So these are some ideas that a lot of my students have used that are really effective. The first one is to have a mission that you're on that is bigger than just sending the person exposure. So like for me, for example, if you want to interview me, I don't really care how much exposure you're going to give me, because I already get tons of exposure. It has to be absolutely enormous. If the New York Times called and they wanted to do an article about me, I would care. Okay, but most other media outlets, you have to be absolutely enormous for me to care about the exposure at this point. But what gets me to agree to interviews with people is when they're on a mission to change the world in some way, and when they're trying to do something that's really positive, and it's a mission that I want to get behind. And I want to help them do that. So what I would say is, when you're pitching an interview, don't pitch, I have 1,000 listeners, or I have 50 listeners, or whatever in the beginning. Say, I'm on a mission to change the world. I believe that this thing here, X is wrong, and so I'm doing Y to fix it. Will you be a part of that? Will you do an interview on the show? And you're going to get a much higher percentage of yeses. Another one is, if you want to interview a blogger, write a guest post for them first.
Yeah.
Okay. So if you write a guest post for me, for my blog, and then after you do that, you do a good job, then you come and you ask me for a 30-minute interview, hour interview, I'm never going to say no. Never.
Wow.
So that's just another little trick to get in there.
Love that, John. And jumping back here, I want to just welcome in some more people that have poured in here. We have Gary Griffiths from Easton, Connecticut. Welcome, Gary. James Beach from Bronx, New York. Christopher Gierkins coming at us from Belgium. What's up? Love it. I knew you were somewhere cool. Scott Markowitz coming at us from Holly Springs, North Carolina. We got Kevin Jones from Huntsville, Alabama. Sarah Craig coming at us from La Jolla, California. Right next door, Sarah. Love it. We have Leslie Kernisan coming at us from San Francisco, California. Love San Francisco. We have Lorraine Manners coming at us from Toronto, Ontario, the top hat of America. Love it. Ji Hai Hong coming at us from Buena Park, California. What's up, Ji? Welcome, welcome. We also have Barney Davey coming at us from Phoenix, Arizona. We have Sean Lelos coming at us from Norman, Oklahoma. What's up, guys? Give a big woohoo if you are still here and rocking and have joined Paradise, because we're excited to have you. And there is something I want to share real quick, and this is something I do not offer every webinar by a long stretch, usually only once a month, actually. But again, this is John Morrow. I'm doing a few things that are special for him, and I want to talk about real quick the total launch package, because a lot of people get held back because they feel like there's a few initial steps that they just can't quite take. And the reality is that we have things set up for you to really make that happen. This total launch package, and I just need to make it clear up front, this is only for Podcast Paradise members. This is actually a $3,000 package that we have discounted to an obnoxious level for Podcast Paradisers only. So, you can go to this this URL, eofire.com/TLP, to check it out if you're not in Paradise, but you only can join if you are a member of Podcasters Paradise. We only take Paradisers for a fraction of that $3,000 package number. And on that total launch package, you actually do get a 10-minute one-on-one call with me where we talk about your strategy. You get a professional intro and outro from the team that actually does my intro and outro, and we're always changing that up. You can get a professional podcast logo design from my designers that work on this stuff. They're amazing. And then an audio bumper from me, which is going to give you some social credibility, some social proof. That is an audio bumper, something like, hey, this is John Lee Dumas from Entrepreneur on Fire. You are listening to the John Morrow podcast. You must be prepared to ignite. That would be an example that you can use in the intro or as an outro or just something that's kind of fun that lets people know that you're here having a blast. I'll drop the link in the chat room. Again, it's just eofire.com. Let me type that in. And this is for Paradisers only, so I just want to make that very clear. But let's go back to some questions that we've still been having, and you guys have been having some great ones. I'm going to kind of go into overdrive here because we only have a few minutes left on this webinar, and it's from Nolan, who says, if we will be mainly doing interview-style podcasts, do you use Skype to host a conversation and record it? How can you ensure the quality? Nolan, I always use Skype to record it, absolutely. I actually record directly into Adobe Audition. Ecamm for Mac or Pamela for PC are two other amazing options, and we have those tutorials for you in Paradise. And I'm sad to say, your last question, you can never ensure the quality. You never know the audio, the internet connection of your guests. It's just going to be kind of up in the air. Hopefully you're hardwired in. Hopefully you have a good microphone, but you can never ensure quality of an interview over Skype or anywhere. Don says, how do I create my avatar? Well, Don, you go to Podcasters Paradise in the first section under How Do I Create My Avatar, and you watch that video, and you are off to the races. Rascal says, how does someone overcome their fear of having unclear speech? Someone having a speech problem, clarity related, or say stuttering, etc., may not become confident to do podcasting even if they wish to. Can such people become confident creating podcasts? Rascal, absolutely, and I want to make a very important point here. You are going to, if you stutter, or if you have a speech problem, or if you have clarity issues, you are going to resonate in a powerful way with a massive listening base that's not going to resonate with somebody like me, because they look and they're like, well, John, he's able to speak very well. He's clear on most of the things that he says. Of course, I slur some words together like everybody. But, the reality is that I am, not going to resonate with people as much as somebody who stutters or has clarity issues is going to resonate with people with those same issues. We resonate with people who are like us. You are going to give confidence. You are going to give hope. You are going to give excitement to those people because you've taken that leap. My first 50 interviews, I had clarity issues, I had stuttering problems, I was and ahing every other word. Go back and listen. I got better, you'll get better, but as you get better, believe me, your audience will be into it. Let me dive into Belinda says, do you have any tips about co-hosting a podcast? I'm looking at creating a podcast with another person. Absolutely, Belinda. We have an amazing tutorial on co-hosting in Paradise. Make sure it's the right person with the right vision because, a lot of people you'll see that start with a co-host end up pod fading because they don't have that same vision. $5 Travel says, what options would there be for a podcast that is purely entertainment? $5 Travel, I don't really understand your question, but I can just say that limitless. Scott said, how do you know when you're ready to start asking for sponsorships and how do you approach them? Scott, usually between 2,000 to 3,000 listens per episode is going to get you at a point where you can really get out there and ask for podcast sponsorships. Felicity says, Kate, one of the issues I'm facing with my biz podcast is that we have about 10,000 views in iTunes. Now my boss wants me to figure out how to get these listeners onto our email list. Any suggestions? Yes, Felicity, go to the grow section. We tell you how to utilize your outro and call to action to get people back to your website and email list. And Flora says, so many gurus say video is the next big thing. What made you choose podcasting as your focus? Flora, don't make the same mistake that so many people make and think that podcasting is not video as well. You can do a video podcast as easily as an audio-only podcast. Go to the top business podcasts in iTunes, click on TED Talks. That's a video podcast, and it kicks butt. So you can do video podcasting too. Scott says, what % of Paradisers members make enough money to earn a living, and how long after launching their podcast do they earn money? Scott, I do not have that information, and it varies too much to answer the second part of your question, because a lot of people don't even desire to make money with their podcast. It's just an entertainment hobby. And Sebastian says, how can you incorporate videos, still photos, and screen grabs into a podcast? Sebastian, you can't if it's an audio-only podcast, but if it's a video podcast, you can, just like you would any video. So guys, that was kind of a rapid fire to wrap up all these questions. You've been amazing. I know that I got to jump off now because we have another webinar coming up in just a few minutes. And John, I'd love to turn it back over to you, my friend, and have you say some final words goodbye.
Yeah, that's it, everyone. Thank you so much for taking the time out of your day to come to these trainings. You know, one of the things I've noticed teaching now for several years, it's the people who come to workshops like this. And it's also the people who invest in themselves that are the ones that become the superstars. I mean, just the guy I mentioned earlier, Danny Inney, that I now endorse. Danny was in my very first class.
Wow.
And he is now a multi-millionaire blogger.
Yeah.
Okay. So, I mean, just because you're on one of these calls right now, you may be the next Danny Inney. Or you may be the next John Lee Dumas or John Morrow. Okay. So, I'm looking forward to seeing all of you guys in the Podcaster's Paradise. And thanks again, John, for doing this. It's been totally awesome.
I could not agree more. I want to thank you as well, and just kind of give a wave. Let me turn my video on and give a wave to anybody who's still hanging out. Thank you guys for being amazing. I had such a blast with you this fine morning here in San Diego. So wherever you are in the world, keep on rocking. I'm looking forward to see a ton of you. I'm still seeing signups as we're speaking right now in the Podcaster's Paradise. So congratulations, and we will catch you on the inside.